Welcome to the part 2 in this series of blue and green dates. Just a quick review. So, in the part 1, we looked at what is the meaning of trend and seasonality, and then we looked at a number of charts that try to show this time series of either employee joining trend or superstore sales, and to see which one helps us to understand trend better, which is generally the direction, which is up or down, and the seasonality, which is about repetition, cyclicality, or whatever word that we want to use. And then we got into each of these charts, try to understand what type of a behavior that date is exhibiting. Is it blue or green bucket? And then we also switched to Excel and tried to see behind the scenes how is this really done. So in this part 2, having seen all of this, let's summarize the benefits of the discrete and the continuous dates. And then there are certain nuances that I want you to notice, especially with respect to discrete versus continuous axis. It could be helpful in some cases, but this is something that a lot of people are often confused. So I just wanted to include this. And then we'll get into the simpler aspects, which are date hierarchy and how, when we drill down, what is really happening with respect to different types of behaviors. And then we look at date filtering, which has its own nice cases for blue and green. And then finally we will get to custom dates. We also have a tip for you how to drag your date. We will cover, and then finally we'll end the video with a custom dates hack that would allow you to do something which may not seem doable within Tableau. So first, let's summarize the benefits. So here is the chart that we have used, right? So if all we had is one type of a date behavior, which is just a continuous behavior, this is what Excel and many other tools will support. This is all we could get to, right? If we had only the discrete behavior where we are writing formulas and then combining this is the kind of behavior we would get to, right? So combining these two, both discrete as well as continuous, allows us to produce this kind of a chart, which allows us to bucket the year and then within that to display things. So these are the possibilities that, so from a seasonality perspective, looking at the bucketing, really the discrete values make sense. From a continuous perspective, really to understand whether there are levels up and down, especially when they are in different buckets, that's helpful for us to know. And then the second thing that is often useful is, especially when we are looking at from a seasonality perspective, typically we see this kind of a chart, right? So where things are, if we want, we could even sort. In a continuous axis, we can't really think of sorting because we have a start point, we have an end point, and that has to be obeyed, right? So whereas within, once we make it a discrete, it is like any string. We can move things around, which allows us to actually see and stack the numbers. And so this is the thing that we have. So here, what all I have done is I've used the one-click sort to sort by the basically number of records. If I clear the sort here, you would see Tableau automatically switches to a line chart. If I apply the chart, it switches to a bar chart. So this type of an intelligence, right, is possible. And then nothing stops us from taking this and then breaking it down by year. So here, if you see, I am putting year on rows. So you get each one of these years separately, and then you could see which months were the highest and whether the trend was consistent. And again, I have applied sorting here. If I clear sort, automatically Tableau will switch to the line chart, and I can click on sort again, and then I can get a bar chart, which allows me to focus on the best and the worst months. So now let's turn to discrete versus continuous axis, how it is drawn, and some nuances I wanted you to notice. So if you see here, it can be treated as discrete as continuous, and if you draw a plot, this is what will happen. This is the discrete part, the top one, and then this is the continuous part. All Tableau is doing is it's kind of filling the entire view and then elongating things. Otherwise there is no difference really. Or is there really a difference? So if you look at this chart where I have put both of them to fit the width, as well as I have turned on the tick marks. If you see, so this is a bucket, this 2014, and then next is a bucket. So the tick mark is telling you the starting and ending point of the bucket. Whereas here, if you see 2014, and then 2015 are not really buckets. So here between the tick marks it is centered, whereas here it is straight on the tick mark. Why is this relevant? Most of the time it's not really relevant, you don't have to pay attention, but sometimes beginners are getting confused why the axis is getting elongated and stuff. This is the case. So here I am displaying the month side by side. So there is discrete and the continuous. As you can see here, the year is acting as a bucket in both cases. So there are separate lines drawn so that to indicate year is a bucket in itself. But then here in this case, month is acting as discrete, which is the blue pill. Each of these month is listed, and then here it is acting as continuous. So some of the months, whatever is possible from a display perspective, would be displayed, right? So if there is more space, then more numbers would be displayed. So here I'm trying to, let's format this date so that it is let's say we display only 3 letters. As you can see now, it is displaying every quarter what is really happening, right? So because we can understand this is February, March, and that's how it is going. Now in this case, we have a plus button also, which allows us to expand. If I expand here, look at this. So within January and February, it is becoming like each date gets its own thing, which kind of looks a lot messy. Whereas here, if I look at this and drill down, this is a continuous line. So now having seen the benefits as well as discrete and versus continuous axis, how it's drawn, now let's turn our attention to these topics: date hierarchy, filtering, and all of this. So let's try to understand how really date hierarchy works. So as we have seen in the Excel, we have the join date, and then we added all these things ourselves, the year, month, and month name. So let's understand what Tableau does. So when I double click on a date, by default, Tableau has created the year. Like we in Excel, we created a year manually. Tableau did it for us. So we are able to see this. So let me add some data also. So we can see, for example, this results in a line chart like this, right? So now the nice thing about this is drillable. So I can drill into the next quarter, then I can see these values. When it comes to date, the other functionality that Tableau, so we can see we do not, because we just have 10 records, we do not really have data points for all the months and years. So what we can do is right click and show missing values. In this case, Tableau will try to show you all the values from the first till the last values. If there is anything missing, this will be shown here as well. So and then we can, instead of quarter, I want to look at the month, and this time the month at the top is going to represent to us what is at the top, which is dimension, bucket behavior, the blue. And then month bottom, this is the standard calendar month with the context, which is behaving like a measure, which will result in an axis. So let's move on to a month here. Now we can see if we let the show missing values on, we actually have only 2 months for which there is data, but then all the values are on. If I turn it off, then only a few things are displayed. Yeah. So the hierarchy can really expand to any level. So to really understand this, the best place to do is the superstore data itself. So let me double click on this and the order date. Now we have yearly information. So I want to drill down to the quarter level. All the data is there. I want to drill at the month level. Now I don't really want quarter. I can remove this. Now the month is there. And then you can do any of these other charts that I have demonstrated. We can move it to color. Depending on whatever you want to build, it is now possible to build here, right? This is from a discrete hierarchy. So if I bring it back, it is here. So when we have a bucket and then we want to go to the next level, we put a sub bucket inside a bucket. That's what is happening. So when we expand, the new bucket called quarter is created and they are placed inside. And that's how it works when it comes to blue pills. So now let's change it to a green pill by going to this one item, and now see what happens. As expected, this is elongated. Now look at the behavior. I do a plus, and then now this is not really putting a sub bucket inside. Why is that? You can see from a axis perspective, as you want to get fine grind, I am putting more tick marks, more axis tick marks, right? So in this ruler, I have each inch is like a 1 inch. If I want to show even a smaller ones, I would put more tick marks so that my eyes can actually get aligned to that, which is what Tableau is also doing. So here it is putting basically more tick marks. I can just add to the next level. and then you can see each of these data point is a month in itself. So it makes sense when we are drilling down, the end points are exactly the same. Only what we are drawing in terms of the number of points we are drawing, that is increasing. That's why these two behaviors are exhibited when we are dealing with drill down, right? So now then let's get into date filtering. So now if you want to turn on filtering, as expected, this will result in a blue bucket filtering. That means each value would be listed separately. Makes sense. So now if I want to do a continuous, which is a slider type of a thing, all I need to do is right click here, change it to this part, which is a continuous part, and then show filter. Now this slider is much easier. So now let's look at the next level, which is the month itself. So here we do not want the year, so let's look at month itself. So when it comes to month, if you see, this is so let me turn on the filter. So you are seeing January, March, which is discrete buckets in itself, right? But what if I want a slider here, right? So I'm going to change it to this month, and which is, then if you turn on the show filter, you will see this is January 2011 to this. So how this works, if we basically bring this month name and show filter, and then you can see these two are very similar to each other, right? Because we clipped this out, and this is string, this is also string. Whereas in this case we have a month year combination, and if I show filter here, and then if you see the values, they are exactly the same, January 2011 all the way up to September 2013, and then 2014 is hidden here because the order is properly not maintained in a string, whereas Tableau is putting all of this in proper order with proper strings itself. So that's what is really happening. So instead of us going and writing these complex equations, then dealing with all this string conversion, sorting arrangements and all of that, Tableau is doing all of this for us. Yeah, so that's the power of these two types of filters. Now let's go to the other topic, which is custom dates. So why do we really need custom dates? The problem is, so if I am dealing with, let's go to Superstore, and then I have sales, and then I have order date. Tableau fixed the hierarchy to be quarter and then month. There are many businesses, they may not want to see a quarter at all. So I always want to see year and month next. How do I do that? In that case, Tableau doesn't allow you to customize the hierarchy. We need to create what is called the custom date for each one of these things and then put them in a hierarchy. So this is one possible use of this. The other possible use of this is I use month of order date very often, or month of order date in a continuous fashion very often, right? So rather than each time going, clicking plus 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 and removing to create a chart, I want that to appear here. So these are the two scenarios. Let's see how to do that. Now I'm going to go into join date and then create custom date. So here is this thing. So first, ignore the name for now, we can give it any name. Look at the detail. It's giving you all the hierarchy, year, quarter, month. This is the Tableau standard hierarchy. Now I can directly create something for month, right? So this is the thing that I want to create. And what is this thing? Date part and date value. So here is a simple way to remember this. So date part being the first one relates to the first one on the left, which means the blue dimension aspect of it. Date value being the second one relates to the second one here, which is the measure. That's the easiest thing for you to remember. The other clue that you can associate in your mind is value. We often associate with numbers. So that is related to number, right? Part is like a bucket, but remember just value, and that should help you to figure it out. So if I set this as a value, look at what's going to happen. I'm going to call it continuous. So this is now getting a green thing. So if I now double click on this, this is drawing a continuous axis, each one of this, right? This is clear for us. So now let's create an equivalent which is not continuous this time. So let me go and put month, but this time I'm selecting date part. So that is equivalent to our month name only here. The previous one was equivalent to month year. This time it is equivalent to month name only. So let me double click here. Now you can see this is month. Yeah. So if I bring the month name also here, put both of them on rows, you can see they correspond, right? And then the same thing here. So if I have a month year combination and then bring this join date, it is actually listing all of these values. If I just show it as a discrete thing, you would see they correspond exactly the same. Yeah, just that by default, once you put something as a continuous, Tableau switches to the axis mode. Yeah, so that's the logic of how this is working. So now, having created these two items, so we have a join date months continuous, and then this. So now let's also try to create a hierarchy. So for that, which I need a year number also. So not exact, so year. So now I have join date year, join date month. So I'm gonna drag and drop of each other just to basically join date custom hierarchy. So now I have this. So let's have some fun. So let's put this on rows, and then let's click on join date. Yeah, and then now I am gonna click on the plus. Now look at it is expanding into this. Yeah. This is one of the quirks with the custom dates. When you are expanding, actually Tableau is treating each one of them as its own bucket and then drawing this. Yeah. Whereas when we are in a standard hierarchy, this kind of a behavior doesn't happen, right? So if I remove this and then put this standard hierarchy, so if I bring this and then move it into a custom hierarchy, now this is getting replaced, whereas in the other case it was not doing that. Yeah, so that in my opinion is either an inconsistency or a bug. So those are the two benefits of custom dates. And then finally, one last thing that I want to demonstrate is how do you drag your date along, right? So if I want to do all of these things, different combinations of things with the dates, you have to click a lot of places and do. For example, if I want to just list the actual dates itself, how do? I right click, I want exact date. Now it has converted this into green. Then I need to go and put this. So just to list the dates, I need to go through so many of these hoops, right? So how can I avoid this? So what I'm gonna do is, so you can right click and drag. In Mac, I'm gonna press on Alt and drag. So I'm gonna drag here. When you drop, you are going to get this dialog box, which is similar to the one that you got whenever you tried to do a filter of measure directly from the left side area. That time you got this thing. So here is the explanation. So now the blue corresponds to the blue bucket behavior, the green corresponds to green ruler behavior, which is a number behavior. In both cases, we have this hierarchy. There is a blue hierarchy, there is a green hierarchy here. What is interesting is, as I said, dates can behave like a number. So you also have a number of aggregations which are possible, min, max, and count, if you ever want to do that. So that is possible here. And then these are all the cases. And then you can also select this one called join date as a discrete thing. Once you select this is going to just list exact date as it is coming in, as if it is a discrete dimension, meaning individual values are going to be listed, which is going to come here. Yeah. So this is the benefit of having that kind of a right click and drag. And before we end, I wanted to show you one blessing as I told you previously, in the custom dates, Tableau doesn't behave consistently when we have a custom hierarchy. We can actually use it to our benefit. Normally, if you have a report like this where I have yearly sales, I've turned on the numbers so that you can see and verify. So this is yearly sales and this is quarterly sales. If I want to see them side by side, that conventional way in Tableau is to put them on a dashboard with up and down. The quirk behavior of custom dates and understanding a little bit of the dual axis allows you to build a chart like this. Yeah. So where I have both year and the quarter side by side together, and I'm able to see this is the year. That's why I turned on the numbers for you to see. So they are consistent. So this is depicting a yearly trend, 4 values. This is giving us a quarterly trend. And then if you want, since this is custom, we can display a month and nothing stops us from really doing this, right? So how do we do something like this? All we need to do is click on order date, and then let me do sales here. And then once I click on drill down, now it is putting them in 2 different charts, right? Because they are seen as 2 different buckets, and then axis is drawn. I'm going to turn on dual axis for them so that they are combined into the same axis. So now measure names will come because there is dual axis, but we just have only one measure name here. So we don't really want that on color. So now we need to differentiate this. So I will go to the year portion, and then I will assign it one type of a color. and then I will go to the this bottom portion. It already has a different color, is fine. So now let's move this order so that the quarters come at the bottom, year come at the top. Now let's format the year X also, so that the font we can put something like this. Yeah, so now you are able to see. And then the other thing I did also is to turn on the tick marks, just for you to see how this is working. So I'm going to do something which I won't generally do, but just to demonstrate the values, you can see these values are different.